Welcome to Inspire Change, a new inspirational and motivational broadcast that strives to empower men in a positive way. The entire series will consist of only 5 minutes. Yes, 5 minutes, as they are designed to educate, empower, and inspire even the busiest individual on the go over that first cup of coffee. Please join me in welcoming Gunter, international psychologist, author, speaker, and producer.
One of the topics that I want to focus on that I think is absolutely critical if we're going to really approach our well-being and our personal growth is that of addictions. It's in fact maybe not a surprise, but men are particularly prone to the issue of addictions. Now, the experts are actually often divided about what causes addiction. So let me explain a few things. Firstly, I'm not just going to focus on the sort of obvious addictions like alcohol, drugs, and gambling. I'm talking about behaviors wherein we experience a certain level of compulsion and obsessiveness. Now, it's not an obsessive-compulsive disorder, but those elements are really, really critical. So when I talk about addictions, I could be talking about something like work, for example, food, particular rituals, exercise. And again and again and again, one of the things that research tells us is that we as men are particularly prone to that. And so the question arises about why that might be the case. Now, as I said, experts are divided about it. Some talk about addictions as having a genetic basis. Other people talk about it as being purely behavioral. Some people look for a personality type that is prone to addiction. In my experience, one of the foundations in understanding how a person becomes addicted is to change the word from addiction to dependency. And in that, it explains a little about the origins of that behavior. Now, in my experience, there's two aspects to it. One is dependency arises from the need to somehow rectify a problem with one's attachment style. So this often happens in early to mid-childhood. The other aspect is childhood trauma. Now, this is particularly relevant to the sort of obvious addictions like alcohol dependency, drug addiction, and gambling. And for some people, they unfortunately experience all of those. So one of the things that they'll do is if they'll stop one particular addiction, like they'll stop the alcohol intake, they'll transfer that onto something like gambling. So in understanding that what it is that triggers our behavior to become more obsessive, more compulsive, and leads us into the dependency, it's often a form of self-soothing. So it's a way in which we cope with stress, in which we reward ourselves, in which we try and find some sense of ease. The only problem is it actually creates what a lot of people refer to as a dis-ease. Now, the other problem with addictions is fundamentally they are rigid behavior styles. And as you've heard me speak before about one of the cornerstones in psychological and overall well-being is the ability to be emotionally, cognitively, and behaviorally flexible. When we experience the consequences of an addiction, that is essentially... So in an addiction, we're actually inflexible, we become rigid. So one of the problems with that is we begin to or continue to lack the ability to adapt to a changing inner and outer environment. And change is a constant. It is something that we experience every moment of being alive. So the more I lock into a particular behavior, and again, thinking is also a behavior. If I'm addicted to a particular type of thinking, then that is going to restrict how I adapt to the environment. And being resilient and living well requires that adaptability. So my flexibility around how I think, what I feel, and what I do becomes crucial. So my challenge to all of you is look at the little things that you might be addicted to in your life. It could be, the routines in the morning. It could be how you get to work, what you do with food. Challenge yourself, turn things over so that you have an opportunity to reinforce being flexible. So good luck with that. Until next time, I'm signing off.
Thank you, Gunter, and thank you to our listeners in our first super short broadcast series, Inspired Change with Gunter Swoboda. Please join us every Wednesday for a new broadcast by visiting www.spreaker.com/show/inspire-change, which will feature all the ways you can listen. If you have comments or suggestions, email producer@studio3hollywood.net. Thank you and have an inspiring day.